Fresh export sales weren't enough to lift soybeans on Friday as the market continues to watch South American weather. Michelle Rook has more in Markets Now.
Grains ending mostly higher on Friday, except for a few of the soybean contracts. Darin Newsom, senior market analyst with Barchart, is joining us. Darin, let's talk about corn and wheat. How much of the uptick there on Friday was just some end-of-the-year short covering?
Yeah, I think a good deal of what we saw was indeed short covering. It'll be interesting to see the total open interest numbers, particularly for Chicago wheat here, over the last number of weeks when we see the market rally and post, some solid double-digit gains almost invariably. When we look at the CME website the next morning, we see that total open interest has dropped. And so this tells us, that funds are simply covering their short positions. So I think we saw some of that in Chicago wheat. I think we saw a little bit of it going on over in corn, just not quite as enthusiastic. But still, both markets were able to close higher.
And we kind of had a mixed close in soybeans, but saw two-sided trade during the day. So you kind of got the Brazil weather story on one hand and maybe some demand news on the other, kind of a tug-of-war there.
I think most of this did come from the weather, and it's what I like to call WWW activity, or wraparound weather market weekend. So we see, we see the forecast going into the weekend, and that drives Friday's trade. And early on this, on Friday morning, we saw some forecasts for more rain across much of Brazil. And it looks like by the time we got to the close, some of that rain had been taken out. So the contracts were able to rally. But again, the biggest part of the rally came in the January contract. And so we have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. It's mostly been moved away from there. Most of the open interest now is in March. So, and really the contract to watch with Brazilian weather is that May issue sitting out there.
As we start a new week, Darin, are we going to see, some of this holiday thin trade weather? What are we going to be watching?
All the above. I think it is going to be thinner trade. Corn has certainly had some very quiet sessions. And this leaves the door open to things like what we've seen recently in the Chicago wheat with large moves. And soybeans, I do think it's still going to be weather. I think it's going to be demand. Certainly a time of year when we need to see some demand picking up for U.S. soybeans. So I think it's going to be all of the above, everything you mentioned.
Thanks for joining us, Darin Newsom with Barchart, and we'll have more AgDay coming up.